I'm just gonna say it. Folding phones are where the boundaries are still being pushed when it comes to smartphones. And sometimes the boundaries that we're pushing are boundaries maybe we ought not push, but you have to admit that it's the least exciting if you are a great big nerd like me. Today we're talking about the Vivo X Fold 5 because we have a new claim being made by Vivo, a claim that the Vivo X Fold 5 in this one metric will be the world record holder. Let's take a look at this article over here on shanecraig.tech. We pulled a video from Chinese social media website Weibo, which looks like this. This video shows the Vivo X Fold 3 and the Vivo X Fold 5. Of course, the Fold 3 is, sitting where you can see the back of it because it's already a known device. The Fold 5, they have flipped around so that you can't really see what's going on all that well with it. But they're being placed onto a scale. And when they let go of the scale, what happens is exactly what you'd expect. The Fold 5 is lighter than the Fold 3. And they have some text that pops up on the screen here, which I cannot read, but luckily I have a phone, and we will translate this very quickly. What this says is that it is the lightest foldable phone to date at 219 grams, and then, of course, that the Fold 5 is going to be even lighter than that. What that says is set a new record for thinness and lightness. Now, there are two claims there, thinness and lightness. And of course, you can't really see much from this video. You can see that the Fold 3 is there, and we know that it's, pretty darn thin. According to GSM Arena, it's 4.7 millimeters thick, which is, again, very thin. It's not quite, Oppo Find N5 levels of thin, but it's very thin. And then if we kind of frame by frame our way through this, you can see the Fold 5 being placed down, and you can see that USB-C port right there, and there's not a lot of room around that USB-C port. You can also see the crease there is also pretty darn narrow. It doesn't look like it's got the same rippled look that the Oppo Find N5 has, so that's pretty impressive as well. There's maybe a better look at that USB-C port, and to me, that looks every bit as thin as the Oppo Find N5, but we have to kind of talk about this a bit more deeply. If we go back to my article, you will see that I referenced this news post here. It's rumored to be quite thin, measuring 4.3 millimeters when unfolded and 9.3 millimeters when folded. This is coming from this website here, expertpic.com, and this was in collaboration with Yogesh Barar. And you can see, I believe it's down here, 4.3 and 9.3. Now, the reason that this gets immediately complicated is something I've been talking about quite a bit here lately. The measurements that we get when it comes to these folding phones either include the bezel that protrudes up out of the device, or they don't. The measurements as they come from the OEM do not include the bezel. But if you take a caliper and you measure them, you will include the bezel and you will get a different number. For instance, Oppo Find N5 is listed at 4.2 millimeters when open, but if you measure it with the bezels, it's closer to 4.5 millimeters, 4.6 millimeters. So when we say that this is going to be a very thin 4.3 millimeters, which puts it right there with the Find N5, are we including the bezels or are we not? I would say that by looking at this, you can definitely see that there is a bezel around this, and the reason that the bezel is there is so that when you close it, the screen isn't touching itself, which could be a problem. And then you look at the numbers, 4.3 and 9.3. Well, if there's no bezel there and you just double 4.3, you get 8.6, not 9.3. And it tends to be that these bezels are somewhere around a half a millimeter. So I think that some fuzzy math there, all that adds up. I think that we're getting 4.3 without the bezel, which would not make it the thinnest because the Oppo Find N5 exists. So maybe something's lost in translation here with this video. Maybe some of you can tell me more specifically what that text says. Maybe Google Lens is wrong. Maybe thinnest is a mistranslation. But lightest, I think, does make sense because the Fold 3 was 219 grams. It was already meant to be the lightest, and this is going to be lighter than that. Another data point here, the Find N5 is 229 grams, so that's a pretty significant difference. Now, a phone is not its thickness and its weight alone. If we look at the rest of this device has also been rumored to have an 8.03-inch inner screen and a 6.53-inch outer screen, 16 gigs of RAM. Kind of curiously, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chipset rather than the 8 Elite. Now, that might keep the price down a little bit, and it might make room for the Pro version of this phone to come along and have the Snapdragon 8 Elite on board. But the impressive specs go even further than that. It's rumored again by that same expert pick article to have a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, which is definitely silicon carbon. Silicon carbon? Is it silicon or silicon? There's no way to know. That's a massive battery. And then 90-watt wired fast charging and 30-watt wireless charging is also, as I put here in the article, absolutely bonkers. And it is embarrassing for companies like Samsung, who seem to be very reluctant to use new battery technology, kind of going a half step, not quite to the silicon carbon batteries. Kind of embarrassing for sure for them. And then cameras, also extremely impressive. It is a triple 50 megapixel setup. And while the camera setup on the Oppo Find N5 is largely fine, they get a bit embarrassed here by the fact that they managed to include a 50 megapixel ultra wide, where Oppo stuck with a basically useless 8 megapixel ultra wide on the Oppo Find N5. This phone looks absolutely incredible. Now, we do not know what the launch date is going to be, the price, the color, things like that, but we do know what the prior models have run at, and we do know that last year's X Fold 3 can be imported for around $1,100. Obviously, it's had time for the price to come down, but hopefully that means that the price will be in the similar ballpark to where it was last time with the Fold 3. In case you're wondering, they went from Fold 3 to Fold 5. There is no Fold 4. They skipped that number in China, so that's what that is. Guys, very, very impressive looking phone indeed. A phone that in many ways looks like it might be leapfrogging Oppo, Samsung, a lot of different OEMs, and again, that is extremely impressive. So guys, let me know what you think about this phone. Is this going to be your next daily driver? Are you waiting to see what the Z Fold 7 does, which actually might be a little bit thinner than this? Could be as thin as 3.9 millimeters if the craziest rumors are to be believed. Rumors, though, from reputable sources like Ice Universe. Are you going to stick with, maybe you already have the Find N5 again? Let me know, where does this phone slot in for you in your level of excitement? Drop that comment down below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.